What's going on YouTube? It's your boy Bees coming at you with another old school RuneScape guide. The goal of this guide is to give players with zero theater blood experience a crash course in how the rooms work so that you can efficiently make it to the boss with the maximum amount of supplies, as well as hold your own if you get picked up by a team with higher kill count. Before we get started, I just want to say that the biggest thing that gets people killed within the theater as they're learning is that there seems to be a lot going on, and so they panic and run around and then take a bunch of damage. And I just want you to know that once you learn how to break it down, it's really not that much happening at one time, so just remember to stay calm and breathe. Before we get started, make sure you have these sounds on and you're on Ancient Magics. Here's the gear we're going to be using to learn Theater of Blood. I will say that a Blood Fury makes some of your mistakes a little more forgiving, and a Scythe can be very expensive when learning TOB if you're dying a lot. The reason I have a couple sharks in there instead of a full inventory of brew is because if you have to use a brew in order to regain HP, you lose your stats, and so having a couple food you can just chomp on and keep doing damage is much more efficient and helpful. Before entering the Theater of Blood, you need to go talk to the mysterious guy indicated by the pink box. After you talk to him once, you don't have to talk to him ever again, but that's just how you are allowed in to participate. Then once you are looking for a team, you can apply at the board indicated by the green box, and then on the minimap I have the bank boxed in blue just for reference. Once you have your team, it's common to pre-pop before running in, so I just bank my brews and grab an angler and some potions. If you're using divine potions, grab a shark or something to replenish your HP before eating your anglerfish, and then grab your original inventory back with brews and head on in. The first boss is the Maiden, and when you get up to the gate before going in, you want to drop 2 sharks, and then you'll run in, you'll pray mage and piety, use both dragon warhammer specs, and then fall back and use your blowpipe to start damaging her. This room is basically split into 2 zones. You have the north side and the south side, and on each side you have 1 freezer and 1 damager or DPSer. When you're learning, the thing I strongly suggest is learning how to freeze, because that is the most beneficial role to learn, and if you learn how to freeze at a low kill count, it is way more likely that someone at a higher kill count will pick you up and then they can carry you for kills. The Maiden only attacks the person that is closest to her, but she will drain them for whatever attack style they're using, so if you have your mage gear on and you're a freezer, be aware of this so you don't get drained below 94 magic and can't freeze the crabs when they spawn. The other thing she does is periodically throw blood splats at each person in the room, as well as 3 at whoever is the furthest away from her, so when those are thrown at you, just move. If you do get hit by them, they will heal her and they will deal rapid damage for every tick that you're inside of them, as well as spawn bloods that'll float around the room and chase you. So if those do spawn, just freeze them and kill them and then get back on the boss. When the crabs spawn, they will walk to the Maiden, healing her and increasing her damage if they reach her. The south freezer should barrage south 1 right where it spawns, and then freeze south 2 where the clump will start, indicated by the middle tile marker. Then they will be able to freeze south 4 and north 4 on the same spot as they converge together. The north freezer has the hardest job because they have to freeze north 1 and north 2 tick perfectly, and then freeze north 3 and south 3 on top of the clump. If you're ever slow on freezing north 1, you just skip north 2 and focus north 3 and south 3 on the clump, because freezing multiple crabs is always better than freezing a singular crab. If you're the south freezer, you can actually bring about 20 soul runes instead of 1 of your brews in your inventory, because then once that clump has formed, you can go start tanking Maiden and walk around and blood barrage all your HP back off the clump as you kill them. I recommend switching to your mage gear about 5% before each threshold, and then allowing your DPSers to push it over the edge and spawn the crabs, and that way you're ready to get them as soon as they spawn. Once the north freezer has frozen all the crabs they're responsible for, it's nice if you throw a couple extra barrages into the clump to help kill them a little faster, and then you can throw in your blowpipe and start damaging the boss again. The south freezer, you're going to want to start tanking Maiden because you can blood barrage your HP back, and you are going to want to make sure that you kill as many crabs in the clump as possible as you barrage them. The one thing you have to keep in mind is that the Maiden will still be periodically throwing blood splats, so if you stand in one place to try and barrage all of them, you'll probably get killed. So the thing I like to do is put on my walk and just click across the room. That way you're always moving and can still barrage. The last piece of advice I'll give you as a freezer is do not forget to remove your boots and turn on augury, because that is the only way you're guaranteed to catch a freeze. Otherwise, it's 50-50. As a DPSer, you literally just hit the boss, and then you're going to kill any crab that is frozen by itself. You don't have to worry about the clump. But for the north side, that means you're going to kill north 1 and 2 once they're frozen, and for the south side, you're going to kill south 1. The other thing that you need to maybe pay attention for and take upon yourself is to freeze the blood spawns if they're floating around the room, because you don't need to switch to your mage gear. You can just chuck a barrage with void on, and that allows the magers to focus on freezing the crabs if there's a lot going on. At about 10 HP, you can chuck in a Crystal Halley spec to finish it off, and then every time you finish a Theater Blood Room, get in the habit of turning your prayer off because it'll restore your HP and prayer all the way to full, so if you keep your prayer on, you'll just lose those points. The next room is Bloat, and this infograph will give you all the information you need. The two things that will make it go a little bit smoother is if you have Rune Light, turn on NPC indicators and mark Bloat. That way you can see him through the pillar and you can zoom in a little bit more. The other thing is use your mouse wheel to control your camera rather than your arrows because it'll make it easier to go around corners and turn directions. The other thing is if you do drop something within the room, make sure you drop it away from the pillar so that it's not on the tiles that people want to use to walk on. Keep in mind that when you are learning, it's okay if you leave a little bit early just to be safe. If you're not feeling comfortable with the 4 hits of a scythe and then a chally, or the 5 hits of a whip and then a chally, it's totally fine to just do like 3 or 4 hits and then run back away. Once Bloat is dead, you can pick up your item, and then you're going to drop your salve amulet, go to the chest, and replenish any supplies that you use. The goal that you want to work towards is that you use no supplies in the first 2 rooms, and so the only thing you'll buy is a stamina to replace your salve amulet. If you have the Mauritania Hard Diary done, it's really easy to get a ton of salve amulets, so I really recommend stacking those up before you learn. The next room is Nylo's, and basically for a team of 4, you're going to want 2 meleeers, 1 major, and 1 ranger that are all responsible for their designated colors as they come down from the west, east, and south ramps. The meleeers, what you're going to want to do is you're both going to be in charge of the south, but then each of you can take either west or east. As a ranger, you're basically just going to be a machine gun in the middle, and what I recommend doing is hitting each green crab that comes down and then immediately moving on to the next one and then circle back to any of them that aren't one shot. For the mage, the biggest thing you have to do is choose whether you want to use a trident or barrage, and the way that you distinguish between the two is if it's 1 crab, you just use a trident. If it's 2 or more crabs, you can chuck a barrage. And then periodically throughout the room, there's going to be aggressive ones that come and hit you. It's a little annoying, but when they first enter the room, if you click on them a little too late, you'll like cancel your animation, and so you have to click on them again. So prioritize those and then prioritize the small ones that are on the pillar and then deal with the rest as you can. If you're with beginners, you might notice your HP dropping, so just chuck on a prayer depending on what style you notice hitting you the most, and then just keep trying to do as much damage as you can. This is where I eat my sharks, because if you're the mage especially, if you lose HP and then brew down, you no longer can barrage, so it's easier to just eat a shark and then keep doing damage and maybe barraging. This is definitely the most frustrating room for beginners, and is where most people will probably wipe their first few times. The one thing I say that helps you not wipe is if you are a meleeer, if you are not hitting a melee crab, so if it's walking down or there's none in the room, throw on your trident and hit some of the mage ones. You don't have to do a full mage switch, literally just put your trident on and hit a mage one and then keep going to melee. Eventually the Nylos will start changing colors on their way down the ramp. When this happens, focus on the ones that are already in the room, because then you don't have to deal with guessing which color is which and which they're going to change for. If you do hit a Nylo with the wrong style, it'll become immune to your attacks, and so if that happens, it's kind of bad because your teammate needs to help you out, and it's kind of rough as a learner. The other thing is that when you see them start changing colors, I really recommend putting on Protect from Melee, because there's going to be an aggressive melee wave shortly after. Once you see a bunch of melees come through and you guys feel like you have those done, you can throw on Protect from Mage, because then it's going to be a magic wave. Once you're at the end and things start piling up, you can chuck in some blood barrages to keep your HP up. When the pillars do fall, if they do fall, they deal a lot of damage, so if you see one getting low, make sure you're full health and then start chucking barrages. But the main thing I suggest is that you stick to your selective role. So if you're a meleeer, keep hitting the gray ones. A lot of people get in a bad habit of just going to the middle and start barraging the hell out of everything, and that's pretty counterproductive because then you're only killing 1/3 of the minions. But the meleeers need to keep in mind that the Nylos will explode after a period of time, dealing like upwards of 19 damage. So when they start stacking up, if you're attacking them as a meleeer, you need to hit and run away, so you just flinch them. The nice thing about this room is that the way that the Nylos come in literally never changes. They're always going to be in the same order. So once you learn one role, you're always going to be good at that role. And so it does make it really nice once you learn all the roles, because you'll figure out which ones the aggressive ones are for each role, and you can kind of help. In this video clip, you're going to see me probably switch between a bunch of different styles, and that's just because I know where the aggressive ones are, and so I try to pre-tag them just to help out my team a little bit. When you're learning, for some stupid ass reason, people think that mage is the hardest role. I really think it's the easiest role because you just stand in the middle and use your trident on long range and hit everything, and when you need to, you can just chuck a barrage. But the one thing I will say that sucks about learning mage is when your team wipes, for some really stupid reason, everyone blames the major. It makes absolutely zero sense, and I would say the most times people wipe is because the meleeers are missing ticks. And what I mean by missing ticks is if they just sit there AFK and wait for the monsters to come to them rather than switching on their trident and helping out, or even switching on their blowpipe and helping out. Once you're done with the waves, you can blood blitz your HP back on the final few just to get up your HP topped off, and then get ready for the boss to come down. If you know how to tri-bid PK, this can be your favorite room, hands down. Basically, you just need to switch between your gear and prayer and hit the boss according to the attack style it is. It'll always start off in melee, so you can always switch to your melee gear and get ready. And then the one thing that beginners struggle to wrap their head around is that your character will automatically stop attacking the boss when it changes color. So don't worry about clicking off, just worry about getting the correct prayer up first, and then worry about getting your correct weapon equipped. You can use as little or as many switches as you want for this room. The next room is Soteseg, which most people associate with the maze, and a lot of people are intimidated at first, but Soteseg is one of the easiest bosses if you just slow it down and take control of what's going on. When you first run in, don't just run around like a chicken with your head cut off, because you can actually dump some of the orbs onto your teammates if you run past them at the wrong time. So if people start running around, just take a step back and figure out what's going on and then start hitting the boss. The important things to pay attention when you learn this boss is that you're not only looking at yourself, but you also have to look at your neighbors. Orbs can go from the person diagonal from you straight through the boss and then hit you, and you lose sight of them if you don't see them when they leave the person across from you or right before they hit you. So I pay attention to the person across from me, and I pay attention to both people next to me more than I pay attention to myself, because you can rely on sound to hear if Soteseg shoots an orb at you. Otherwise, just pray melee and then react accordingly. Keep in mind that once you click on the boss, you can just focus on your prayers. You don't have to keep clicking on him after every time you switch your prayer. The final two things about this boss is the big red ball of energy that'll make your eardrums bleed when it comes out. If it's on someone, you need to run to the center or the front of them and just stand on each other so you share the damage. The other thing is that you want to space out, because the orbs will bounce on a different cycle than his auto attack, so you can always pray against both of them. If you get chosen for the maze, just stick to the red tiles and make sure you pause on the third row so that your teammates can catch up. And then if you're in a pre-mage, just ask if they're ready, otherwise just count to 5 and send it. The most important thing is that you map out your first 1 or 2 or 3 moves so that you can do those pretty quick, and then if you need to slow down and take your time, that's okay. Just try and stay at a steady pace so that the tornado doesn't kill the rest of your team that is following your movements. When you're learning, it's probably very unlikely that you could possibly go too fast, so don't worry about going too fast, worry more about going too slow. And also when you're learning, don't worry about going in diagonals or L movements like you see on streams or any of that fancy shit. Just go in a straight line and go fast. After Soteseg, there's only one more room left before the final fight, but this is going to be the last chest you get, so make sure you get rid of any unnecessary supplies and stock up. You want at least 4 restores, 1 stamina, and then fill the rest of your inventory with food, preferably brews, but if you don't have enough points, just fill it with whatever you can. Always make sure to check the ground, because sometimes people will drop like half doses of restores or something, and you might be able to combine them to get full potions. You can also sip your ranging potion and drop it, because you only need the range boost for the next room, and so you don't want it for the final room. You need to prioritize food. The final room is Xarpus, and it has 3 phases. When you enter the room, just run to a corner and drop a potion to get an open inventory spot, and then just start covering the exhumes as they open up. You basically want to split the room into 4 quadrants, and then each person sticks to their quadrant, but if your teammate in a neighboring quadrant is covering an exhume, cheat over towards them just in case they start getting overwhelmed and you can help out. Once all the exhumes have been covered and you see them stop spawning, you're going to get close to the boss and then get ready to use both Dragon Warhammer specials and then run straight back to your corner and put on your blowpipe. And every time the boss looks at you as it rotates around the room, it'll go from each teammate. Every time it looks at you, you're just going to move 2 squares away. Don't panic and run around this room because that's how you paint it. If you just go based off of when he's looking at you, you're totally going to be fine. The only damage you'll take in here in phase 1 and 2 is if you stand and let his acid blobs hit you or if you walk through them. If you do get poisoned, don't worry too much about it. It doesn't do enough damage to actually kill you, but you can use redemption if you're getting a little nervous. At 26 HP, Xarpus will Screech, and that is when you'll put on your melee gear and go stand on one of the marked tiles. When you're learning, just stay put in one tile and don't run around. But what you want to do is attack him 2 times and then click on your tile. If he turns and looks at you, just stay put, don't attack him. If you attack him when he's looking at you, he'll hit you for upwards of like 60 or 80 damage and you potentially will get killed. But remember, don't use food here. It's better to just die. When Xarpus turns, he's actually looking at corners rather than looking at full sides. So if he looks at you, just click on the tile and don't attack him and wait for him to turn away. If you're not sure, just don't attack him and wait till you're 100% positive that he's looking away from you. And he won't be doing any damage to you as long as you don't attack him at the wrong time, so take as much time as you need in this phase. Once Xarpus is dead, turn off your prayers so you don't waste that before Verzik, and then pick up your shit and get ready for the final room. But that's another video. I'm just gonna end this one on the rooms because I think that once you master the rooms, it really sets you up for success in Verzik. Thanks for watching this guide. I hope you find it helpful. I hope if you have no Theater of Blood experience, this gives you a little bit of confidence or entices you to at least try it. I think it's some of the most fun content in the game, and I recommend everyone try it. Just remember to be patient and be kind. It can get kind of toxic when you're working with a team and everyone plays a blame game. Take responsibility for your own actions and make sure to have fun. You're on a video game. If you like this content, please let me know. If you have any feedback or constructive criticism, I also appreciate that. Please remember to subscribe. I plan on making more guides like this in the future. I've been getting some good feedback, so I appreciate that all. Thank you guys very much.